Hey guys, this is Camford15, joined by my co-host, my friend Matt, and we are back with another college football week 2 recap. Now, I know this is later in the week. We're recording this Tuesday. It's probably going to go up Wednesday because, hey, why not? So, in terms of scheduling with these recaps, these weekly recaps for college football coming out, we're going to have them up probably more than likely on Wednesday, and we're going to record on Tuesday. But this week of college football wasn't as big as last week because there wasn't really big matchups. I know going into week 3, there are a lot of big time matchups. So week 3 in terms of football is going to be entertaining. But this week still had its own individual matchups that were pretty good and actually some pretty shocking news and stuff like that. So before we talk about like different scores, obviously over the different conferences, we're going to talk about some news. And probably the biggest news that came out of the past week was the fact that, obviously, we know the Big 12, they're losing Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, and they're going to be in there by 2025. Now, the Big 12 actually was gaining to try to find some ways to bring in some other teams from different conferences or places to join the Big 12. And as of September 4th, which I think was actually on during week 2 of college football, the Big 12 actually got BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati to join the Big 12. I think in terms of the Big 12, this is big news for them and good news for them. I think all those teams are really good in their own individual ways. And in terms of, well, for their schools, I guess it's great for all of them because that just attracts obviously more people in terms of recruiting to go to those schools and compete for a Big 12 title, especially with the fact that Texas and Oklahoma are leaving them, mostly Oklahoma because, let's be honest, Oklahoma runs the Big 12. But I like the news. It's definitely going to make things a lot more interesting for Big 12 play. I mean, because I think they're all good schools that are going to be added there.
Yeah. Excuse me. They're definitely going to be good schools. I think they're also good because those schools, as you mentioned, I feel like they're mostly offensive schools. And as you know, the Big 12 was definitely more of an offensive conference. Like you see scores like 55, 49, stuff like that. So that'll be big. And like you said, losing Texas and Oklahoma, mostly Oklahoma, who dominates the Big 12, there's definitely, a chance for a new champion and someone else to run the Big 12. So I think it's good for college football in general.
Yeah. And it doesn't make it to where it makes it to where the Big 12, because I know there was a fear that the Big 12 could potentially just shut down and you just have other teams from the Big 12 going to different conferences because they want to have the right number of teams. But the Big 12 seems like it's going to be staying alive, and those teams are actually going to be in the Big 12 officially by the year 2025, I believe. So essentially the same year that Texas and Oklahoma are going to be in the SEC. Now we're going to go over the obviously the different conferences and all the scores of college football before we get to the big time games. And yeah, so again, we're going to start off with the ACC. So Duke rebounded from losing to Charlotte last week and they beat North Carolina A&T 45-17. Virginia destroyed Illinois 42-14. I know we're not talking Big Ten play, but I guess Illinois' only big win they've gotten so far is against Nebraska. And could you really call that a big win? Because Nebraska sucks. Or I wouldn't say they suck. They're just overrated. They're highly overhyped.
Yeah, Nebraska at Oklahoma this week. That should be a barn burner.
Yeah. So a pretty interesting game. It could have been in one of the games we talked about big, but I think we can go a little bit in depth in this, but that's the fact that Pittsburgh defeated SEC Tennessee 41-34. Honestly, I watched most of this game, and from my eyes, it looked like Tennessee had the upper hand, and then Pittsburgh just went off on Tennessee and just literally beat them. Now Joe Milton, I think he got hurt in this game and he got taken out. But the one thing I did see about Tennessee's offense is I don't know why they're trying to run 4 verts every damn play, because every time Joe Milton is just throwing the ball down the field, I'm like, you're not going to get anywhere close by throwing just fades all day. Now I know he's in some great shape. Like he looks a lot beefier than he did when in his time at Michigan, but I don't know if throwing fades all over the field for him just to show off his arm is going to do anything. But yeah, so it's another. Even though Tennessee isn't really I say it's mid-tier in terms of SEC football schools. It still kind of hurts for the SEC. They couldn't beat probably an ACC opponent because right now the ACC is probably the weakest, conference in football right now. So yeah,
Definitely the biggest of the Power Five, I'd say. They did have that hooker for Tennessee. He did go in and he threw 2 touchdowns, but Milton was also Tennessee's leading rusher with 54 yards on 5 carries, which I think is good for him. But Pittsburgh, their quarterback, Kenny Pickett is his name. He had a really good game. If you, like you said, you watched the game. I watched most of this game too. Right here, stats. He was 24-36 for 285 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he definitely. He also ran for a touchdown, but he definitely more. I'd say managed the game. But he played well. His stats obviously show he played well. He didn't turn the ball over, which is big, and he put his team in position to win the game, which is really big, I think. So I think pretty good game for them. So I think Kenny Pickett was a big win or a big game for week 2, and Pittsburgh's 2-0 now. So
yeah, good for Pittsburgh because I believe they're in the Coastal Conference, so they could be challenging to win that Coastal division there.
We need some sort of big ACC, someone that's going to beat it, not.
Yeah. The next team, Georgia Tech defeated Kennesaw State 45-17. Wake Forest defeated Norfolk State 41-16. Number 19, Virginia Tech defeated Middle Tennessee University 35-14. Rutgers defeated Syracuse 17-7. Boston College defeated UMass 45-28. Clemson bounces back from their loss, and they're number 6 in the country right now. Since we're making this video Tuesday, the new rankings have already came up. So we're essentially reading the rankings of the current team. So Clemson, they're the 6th team. They didn't drop much. They only dropped like 3 spots, but okay. They're 49. They won against South Carolina State 49-3. Obviously, their offense, I guess, did something. Number 22, Miami I didn't watch this game, but was in a almost loss to Appalachian State, 25-23. Now, let me just tell you this. We're talking about how irrelevant the Miami football program is. And if the biggest story coming out of the Miami game is a cat hanging literally from the balcony, about to fall to its death, and it ends up getting caught by people with an American flag. And mind you, week 2 took place on 9/11. That goes to show you that not a lot of people give a fuck about Miami.
Do you mind if I go back and say one thing about the Clemson game real quick?
Yeah.
So we were talking about their offense. I was just looking at the stats real quick, and you would think that their quarterback, I don't want to botch his last name, but DJ hit their quarterback for Clemson would have a big game. I mean, he was only, not that this is bad, but he was 14-24 for 171 yards with a touchdown and an interception. I mean, he did have 2 rushing touchdowns on 23 yards, but I mean, I would expect him against South Carolina State to have a much better game than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, going to the Miami game also, that cat, that's the biggest story. That says something. And I mean, they was barely beating Appalachian State too. I mean,
yeah. I think they dropped, and I think from when I saw the rankings, they dropped actually. So Miami keeps giving unimpressive performances. They're just going to continually drop, and sooner or later, they're 22nd right now. They could be out unranked, and we expected a potential big year for Miami. Well, it seems like they're not going to do anything, and Manny Diaz. If Manny Diaz has a bad loss, like say USC and FSU, which we'll get into in a second, he's definitely going to be gone.
Yeah, and it sucks. I'm a big Derek King fan. I was expecting a big year out of him, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Next up, Mississippi State pretty much handled NC State 24-10. I only saw like little tiny bits of it, and then I kind of just changed the channel. But I didn't catch much of this. Nothing really to talk about.
Yeah, nothing much. Just Mike Leach, if the quarterback for Mississippi State, Will Rogers, threw the ball 49 times. So typical Mike Leach offense, which I like. I think it's cool. So
Yeah. Louisville battles back against Eastern Kentucky and defeats them 30-3 after their loss to Ole Miss. North Carolina bounces back, number 20 or ranked number 20, yeah, number 24th. North Carolina defeated Georgia State 59-7, 17, and obviously the biggest shocker of the I guess college football, one of the biggest shockers of the college football weekend was the fact that FSU lost to Jacksonville State.
and I thought FSU had a great game last week too. I thought they played great last week.
So mind you,
That game, right? They had the Sunday night game on Labor Day, right? Or Labor Day before Labor Day.
so essentially, Florida State takes Notre Dame to the limit to overtime and almost defeats them. If they would have won, if Mike Norvell didn't call a timeout, essentially icing his kicker. Second, they allow it's not even a Hail Mary. It was just a simple fade. Dude catches it, and then anybody that was left in the backfield just didn't make the tackle. And dude just walks into the end zone, game walking away touchdown. I saw like two FSU cheerleaders on the side. They're like, wow.
Yeah, that's exactly the reaction you'd expect. I mean, Jacksonville State, really. And like you said, they just took Notre Dame to the wire. One of the best teams in the country, like, honestly, top 10 team in the country, to the wire. And then they go and lose to Jacksonville State. I mean,
it was an FCS
typical Florida State, though. Typical Florida State, though.
Florida State has not been good since they last won the national championship.
With Jameis Winston, yep.
Ever since then, they've been down. They've been going downhill, and they look like they could be turned into a freaking terrible football program because they've just fallen from the face of the earth. They used to be like one of the legendary ones, obviously Bobby Bowden and all the other their famous history, and now they're looking to go into potentially college football purgatory. And also for Mike Norvell, he's probably regretting leaving Memphis for Florida State now, because
that was a not smart move on his part.
Because now he might, if this keeps up where he has probably more embarrassing losses, he's going to be like his buddy Clay Helton, and he's going to be fired by the program.
Yeah, we're going to have to get into that later, definitely.
So Florida State, thank God I'm not a Florida State fan because, good heaven, I don't know if I could stand those guys. So, yeah. Anyways, going on to the American Conference, South Carolina wins a nail-biter against East Carolina. So South Carolina won because of a walk-off field goal. I didn't see much of this game, so I can't really say much of anything.
I didn't see much of it either. I mostly just watched the highlights just to talk about it on here, and I just saw that South Carolina basically, it says here they had 106 rushing yards on 39 carries for the team. So it looks like South Carolina mostly dominated the running game, and like you said, I saw they won with a last-second field goal.
Moving on, Oklahoma State defeated Tulsa 28-23. I didn't check this out because I think it was on ESPN Plus, but it's pretty shocking to see that Oklahoma State was in a kind of battle with Tulsa. But then again, Tulsa is a pretty underrated team, so yeah, it's not shocking to say the least.
I think Tulsa and Tulane both this year. I think they're both very underrated. I've seen both them play a little bit. And I think both those teams could shock and upset some teams this year. I mean, you saw Tulane almost do it with Oklahoma. So,
next up, number 13, Florida blew out South Florida 42-20. Nothing much to talk about.
Yeah, it was 35-3 at halftime. So it was something like 35-3 at halftime. So it wasn't much like.
Yeah. Now, this game for Tulane was in Birmingham, Alabama, but they defeated Morgan State 69-20. Number 7, Cincinnati defeated Murray State 42-7. Temple defeated Akron 45-24. This was a really CBS game, but Air Force defeated Navy 23-3. I only caught glimpses of that game, so yeah.
Can you pause it for 1 second? I got a call.
Gotcha. All right, back. But like we said, Air Force defeated Navy 23-3. What type of game they had for that game?
I'm pretty sure it was a 3:30 game on ABC. Was that or 2:30 game?
It was on CBS. I know it was on CBS, but what trophy do they fight for? I know they fight for a trophy.
Is it the Commander or is it the Army Navy game?
I think it's the Commander Cup. Let
me check that real quick.
Yeah.
I'll check it for you.
Yeah, but Navy actually got destroyed. So Navy continues to suck. But going on until my co-host gets the cup name for that. Houston defeated Rice 44-7. Then UCF defeated Bethune-Cookman 63-14. SMU defeated North Texas 35-12. And Memphis was in a battle with Arkansas State, and they ended up coming out on top 55-50.
So it says here that Army, Navy, and Air Force all play for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. Mm-hmm. So they all play each other. And, the winner wins it. And this is the last time there wasn't, a winner when, say, Air Force beat Navy, Navy beat Army, and Army beat Air Force.
Yeah.
1903, and when that happens, it just goes to the winner of last year.
Okay.
So.
All right. But that's essentially the American Conference. So moving on to the next conference, which is the Big 12 Conference for Week 2 play. Coastal Carolina, number 17, Coastal Carolina absolutely demolished Kansas 49-22. We already spoke
in that game, though. It was close early in that game.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about the Oklahoma State game. It was I only tuned in. I wish I watched this game a lot more because it seemed like it was really good. TCU versus California. TCU ended up defeating University of Cal 34-32. I know it was a back and forth game though, but I really do wish I watched the full game because it seemed like it was a good game.
Yeah, I didn't see this game either, and it sucks because, like I said, this weekend there wasn't many big games, so there was games kind of scattered all over the place that I watched, highlights of them. More to certain quarters of it and stuff like that. So I didn't even see any of this game, honestly.
Yeah. We'll talk about Iowa State in one of our big time primetime game spotlight, so we'll get to that soon. West Virginia rebounded from their loss against Maryland and defeated Long Island 66-0. Number 4, Oklahoma absolutely destroyed West Carolina University 76-0. Wasn't even nothing. We'll talk about the Texas-Arkansas game in our prime, game time spot. But Arkansas won that matchup. Texas Southern lost to Baylor 66-7. Kansas State was in a battle, and it wasn't against Northern Illinois. It was against Southern Illinois, and they almost narrowly got defeated, but they won 31-23, which is definitely freaking shocking that, well, I guess they almost got upsetted. So, hey. And the same goes for Texas Tech. They almost lost to SF Austin. I don't know what school that is fully, but they won 28-22. So the Big 12 had almost 2 upsets with Texas Tech and Kansas State. So shocking.
These teams in the Big 12 and ACC are just letting title hopes slip away.
Yep.
Not that those teams had title hopes, but it helps them when those teams beat them, when they beat those teams handily.
Yeah. Moving on to the next conference, Big 10 play. We already spoke on the Virginia-Illinois game. We'll talk about the Oregon-Ohio State game when we get to our primetime game spotlight. Michigan State defeated Youngstown State 42-14. Minnesota narrowly squeaked by Miami, Ohio 31-26. They're definitely, I guess you can say, are missing Muhammad Ibrahim. If they're dang near almost losing that close to Miami, Ohio. Remember, guys, this isn't Miami, Florida. This is Miami, Ohio.
Even though I don't even know if Miami, Florida is any better.
Yeah. Northwestern rebounded from their loss against Michigan State and defeated Indiana State 24-6. We already spoke on the Rutgers game. Purdue defeated Yukon 49-0. And you know how we brought up Yukon? Well, Yukon's dead in the water. They're so bad that their coach is retiring at the end of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That might be the least desirable Division I coaching job in Division I coaching job history.
I'm telling you, man. Yukon.
I saw this online, so I'm not trying to say this is mine, so I'm not copyrighting it. But I saw it somewhere where they called them "You Can't." Because they can't buy a win. They really can't.
Listen, my thing is this. I know UConn's a big program. See, honestly, I wouldn't mind if they just scrapped their football team in general. You might as well just get rid of the football team because it's really a basketball school. That's really what it is.
The football stadium is 20 miles off campus.
Yeah. And it's barely packed in that building anyways. So, listen, honestly, I guess I don't blame the coach for being like, look, I'm done. I'm 60 years old. I'm getting out of here. I'm stressing out for nothing. I think we can, without a shadow of doubt, call UConn probably the worst D1 football program in all of college football.
Yeah, they only had 99 passing yards the whole game.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they're they're bad. They're bad.
Come on.
99? Oh, my God. Well.
This is impossible.
Hey, listen, I guess the only way you can make UConn good is whenever the new NCAA football game comes out, but they'll probably, statistics-wise, they'll probably all be D-ranked.
That might be the best rebuild to ever do in NCAA football history.
Yeah. God. Going on from that, 11th ranked Penn State defeated Ball State 44-13. Early on, it was pretty competitive, but then Penn State just stepped on Ball State's necks. Nebraska, before they probably go to Norman, Oklahoma, and absolutely get destroyed. They defeated Nebraska, or not Nebraska, Buffalo, 28-3. So another, I guess, no-named win for Scott Frost as he moves on to Oklahoma and wonders how the hell is he going to beat Norman. That's another guy we got to put on the hot seat who's probably going to get fired by the end of the year, too.
100%, he's on the hot seat, yes.
Yeah. Number 18 for Wisconsin defeated Eastern Michigan 34-7. Indiana defeated Idaho 56-14. Maryland defeated Howard University 62-0. I don't know if should we put the Michigan in the big time, primetime slot games we talk about?
Yeah, we'll talk about it because it's Washington, and even though Washington lost, I think we can bring it up a little bit.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to Conference USA. UTEP lost to Boise State 54-13. Western Kentucky was in a battle with Army 38-35, and they ended up losing. Again, Middle Tennessee State University lost to Virginia Tech. UAB got destroyed by number 2 Georgia, 56-7. FAU defeated Georgia Southern 38-6. Charlotte defeated Gardner-Webb 38-10. University of Texas San Antonio defeated Lamar 54-0. Marshall defeated NC Central 44-10. Obviously, we talked about Houston versus Rice. Texas State was in an overtime game against FIU University, and they defeated them by the score of 23-17. Louisiana Tech almost lost to Southeast Louisiana 45-42. Interesting.
Yes, it was.
So, yeah. SMU and North Texas, obviously we know the score of that game. Old Dominion defeated Hampton University 47-7. Southern Mississippi defeated Grambling State University, which actually one of my friends I know from my elementary school days goes to Grambling University. He played for the track team, though. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Where Where's Grambling?
Huh?
Is Grambling in California?
No, Grambling's in Louisiana. It's a HBCU.
Oh, he went there on like a track scholarship.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a scholarship, but I know he goes there for track and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But Southern Mississippi defeated the Grambling 37-0. So yeah. Moving on, conferences. Independence. Obviously, we talked about Army. Number 8, Notre Dame had a scare against Toledo and almost got upset in Notre Dame. Now, they almost got upsetted by Florida State last week. And this is another week where Notre Dame almost loses. Now, I did watch the end of this game. Now, Toledo had a chance. They took the lead in this game with, I believe, 1:30 left in the game or something like that.
A little bit
and
less.
then
It was.
Yeah. And then Notre Dame gets the ball and essentially moves down the field very quickly. Now, if you're wondering how they moved down the field very quickly and scored a touchdown in like a few seconds, it's because Toledo just, decided to play very stupid football and just play very undisciplined and continue to get penalty after penalty after penalty, which put Notre Dame in the red zone. And by then, it was already too late. Hell, they got, when they get back on offense to try to maybe somehow get the lead back and win the game, first snap, they get another penalty. And it's like Toledo literally probably cost themselves the game because they beat themselves. So, obviously in the game of football, penalties definitely can not only impact the game, but can hurt yourself. So obviously if I was a Toledo coach, I'd honestly be very damn frustrated that we had the lead. We just were very unfocused and undisciplined late in that game. Now, Jack Cohn, he managed to get in there and he managed to get his fingers dislocated, and then they just popped him back in. And then the play later, he freaking threw a touchdown pass. Now they were, yeah. Now they were doing some sort of substitution quarterback. They were going to Jack Cohn, and then I forgot the backup to Jack Cohn's name.
I have it right here for you. It's Tyler Buckner.
Yeah, they were doing that whole thing. Now I thought, go ahead.
He's just a freshman he's a freshman from San Diego, California.
Yeah. Now maybe I don't know why they did that. I think they were doing that because at the time of the game, Jack Cohn wasn't really doing anything, and they weren't really scoring points. So. Who knows? Listen, maybe this is going to show that maybe Notre Dame isn't as good as the rankings suggest, because this is 2 weeks in a row. They've been in quote-unquote battles where they almost ended up losing, and it came down to the final second, really. Now, I'm going to see who Notre Dame's gotten up next week, and they got Purdue at home. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, they did drop in the rankings. They're number 12. So yeah, but for week 2, they were number 8.
I know you were saying they had Purdue, but after Purdue, they do have Wisconsin, Cincinnati. So they do. Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree with you more. That they might be a little bit overhyped. I don't know. This is 2 weeks in a row, and then you see Florida State losing to Jacksonville State. It's like, I just don't know Notre Dame. I really don't.
Yeah. And then that Wisconsin game, when we get to that week, I believe, which is week 4, that's going to be in Soldier Field, home of my Chicago Bears. Yes. We already spoke about Yukon. I think we have nothing else to say. We already talked about the UMass game. Liberty defeated Troy 21-13. Interesting, but then again, they were away, so I guess it makes sense why it was just a 6-point, or really just a 1-score game right then and there. So yeah, the New Mexico State Lobos defeated New Mexico State 34-25, and BYU actually pulled the upset against Utah and defeated them 26-17. And I think this is the first time in a while they have beat Utah in the type of rivalry matchup they have. So hey, props to BYU.
BYU football has definitely been on the rise lately. I really do agree. Even before Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
They have been good in the past 5 years. They really have. I think they have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, going on to the MAC conference, Kent State defeated VMI. I've never heard of that school before. 60-10.
I haven't either.
Obviously, Miami, Ohio lost. Wyoming defeated Northern Illinois 50-43. Good God, these are some high-scoring games. Dunesque defeated Ohio University 28-26. So that's not good for them. Obviously, we talked about the Toledo game. Central Michigan defeated Robert Morris 45-0. Another school I've never heard of. Obviously, we talked about Ball State losing. Buffalo lost to Nebraska. Temple defeated, Akron lost to Temple. Bowling Green actually lost to South Alabama University. Illinois State lost to Western Michigan University 28-0. Eastern Michigan lost, and that's kind of it for the MAC conference. So again, we're just blowing by as fast as we can. Mountain West Conference. Obviously, Boise State won against UTEP. Utah State defeated North Dakota 48-24. Wyoming defeated Northern Illinois 50-43. Air Force defeated Navy, and they got the Commander's Cup. New Mexico defeated New Mexico State. Vanderbilt actually defeated Colorado State, so Vanderbilt got a win, but they won that game 24-21. And Vandy ended up winning off a game-winning field goal attempt. So I guess good for Vanderbilt.
It's good for Vanderbilt. I mean, more like you said. I think I said this last week. They're more of a baseball school, but
yeah,
SEC school. It's definitely tough for them to get football wins.
Yeah. San Diego State utterly destroyed Arizona. We'll talk more about Arizona when we get to the Pac-12 conference review. So yeah. Fresno State continues their great play, and they defeated Cal Poly 63-10. They go to face a very gritty, tough UCLA squad. And in terms of me as a UCLA fan, I'm actually a little bit terrified of what could happen in that game. What time is that game on at? It's going to be, I believe, an 11 p.m. No, a 10 p.m. start time on the East Coast, 7 p.m. Pacific.
Is it on the Pac-12 network, do you know, or?
On the Pac-12 network, I believe.
All right.
So, yeah. I think I have access to that, so I'll definitely be watching that game late at night.
Yeah, I have that too. They have there's also like on the like FS1 at like 12:30 a.m. at like Hawaii versus San Diego State or something like that. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Moving on, Arizona State defeated University of Las Vegas 37-10. Nevada defeated Idaho State 49-10, and Oregon State blew out Hawaii 45-27. Okay, moving on. After that, Pac-12 play. The only team in Pac-12 play that was off on a bye was UCLA because they played Hawaii, and obviously they're a great game against LSU, so they were on a bye this week. We'll save, obviously, we're going to save the Oregon game. We're actually going to save Texas A&M for one of the big-time primetime games we're going to talk about, unless you want to put it here.
No, that's a primetime game. I want to talk about that game.
Okay. We already talked about California. Washington State rebounded and defeated Portland State 44-24. We'll talk about Washington, Michigan later. Speaking about Arizona, since we're going to be, they have really fallen off a cliff, and Arizona just flat out sucks. They might be one of the worst. They might be, if not, one of the worst Pac-12 teams we got.
They had that Khalil Tate at quarterback for a couple of years, and they were doing good. And ever since then, they've been off.
Well, started with Kevin Sumlin, then they got rid of him, and they just haven't rebounded. So Washington State and Arizona probably are right now maybe the bottom barrels of the Pac-12, to be honest.
Yes, I would agree.
We already talked about Utah.
State, you said Washington, right? Not Washington State?
Washington State.
I don't know. They're not bad sometimes. But keep going.
Compared to other Pac-12 teams, I wouldn't say necessarily they're the best.
No.
Especially when it comes stacking up to the Pac-12 North. I don't think they're that good.
Sorry.
It is what it is. Washington's getting to the point where they're going to get damn near to the barrels if they can't do nothing. But I think Washington's still pretty talented regardless. So yeah, we were talking about Utah BYU. The only thing about Utah is it's kind of shocking that Corey Brewer and that offense didn't look really good. So yeah, I guess it is a shock to see that, well, Utah lost to their rivals. Typically, you would think Utah would have beat them, but okay. So yeah, I think, well, do you want to say Stanford versus USC for primetime, big time spotlight games? Or do you just want to talk about it a bit and talk about the big news coming out of that game?
We can talk about it a bit and talk about the big, and then we can talk about the big news about it.
Okay.
I feel like the news is bigger than the game.
All right. So you want to just talk about it now?
Yeah, I have like some of the stats up here right now. Talking about, I mean, obviously, like I said, Stanford beat number 14 USC. Stanford,
42.
I mean, he threw two touchdowns. Tanner McKee, he's only a sophomore. He's from Corona, California. If you know where that is.
Yeah. That was from what I heard. That was his first start, but that was another shock. This was a Pac-12 after dark type of game. Obviously, Stanford had their troubles last week against Kansas State, and they had nothing. They could do nothing against Kansas State. And they just came up to the freaking Coliseum and just absolutely destroyed USC, 42-28. And even though, see, this is the thing. Stanford, I think it's no matter how bad Stanford is, 9 out of 10 times they do pretty well against USC. And USC barely has their numbers. Now, USC takes a demoralizing loss, and they're actually unranked now. They literally got kicked out of the rankings for this loss because, well, it just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't good enough, and they absolutely got embarrassed on their home building. Heck, if you look at the pictures of the Coliseum this past week, it was damn near as empty as everybody was making fun of the Rose Bowl for Week 1's matchup of UCLA versus Hawaii. So
the Stanford running back, Nathaniel Pete, he had 6 carries for 115 yards. I mean, granted, he had an 87-yarder, but USC's defense didn't get it done either. 42 points at Stanford.
Yeah, and USC was hyped to probably be maybe a Pac-12 South winner / Pac-12 potential champion. If they couldn't beat Stanford, I think they stand no chance of defeating Oregon. And it seems like UCLA could be the potential winner of the Pac-12 South. Now, they got to definitely defeat Utah and USC to do it, but we'll see. But obviously, the biggest news coming out of USC, which came out yesterday on Monday afternoon, is the fact that USC, I know for USC fans, they're overjoyed and they're throwing parties. Is the fact that USC has finally fired Clay Helton, the head coach. Now,
as they should have. I mean, people are saying it's only after 2 games, but I saw Gallon Coward today, and he was saying there's really 3 big-time city schools in college football. It's Miami, UCLA, and USC as in big-time cities. Saying that Tuscaloosa isn't a big city. Ames, Iowa isn't a big city. Like Liberty, Pennsylvania, or something like that. But you got to get a big-time guy. Last time they were good. They had like a Pete Carroll. They have UCLA. They're good because they have Chip Kelly, an NFL guy. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Johnson was a coach at Miami before. You need those schools. You need big-time guys. So they got to get someone big. Go for it. Playing someone like a Matt Nagy if he gets fired. And Anthony Lynn.
Maybe I don't. Listen, this is a Bears fan approach. I believe if Matt Nagy gets fired, he's never getting another head coaching job, whether it's the college or high school level, high school, college, or NFL level. I think the best Matt Nagy is just a regular positional QB coach. I think that's the lowest you can get, and that's the highest you can get. I don't think he's an offensive coordinator. I don't think he's even head coach material. Now, head coach in terms of Matt Nagy being a head coach material, if he's strictly just being the guy that gets the players ready to play, and he's the type of rah guy and not a guy calling plays, then okay, fine. I think he's a decent enough head coach. But if he's calling plays, I think you run into the same issue, and USC fans would get sick and tired of Matt Nagy. Rumors are going on now. People are like, oh, what if Urban Meyer leaves Jacksonville, for USC? Now, that would just be absolutely stupid, because then why would Urban Meyer just take the NFL job?
Yeah, he wouldn't do that.
So unless things go insanely wrong and Urban Meyer's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave and I'm going to stay in the college area. Then maybe. Now I did hear, I did see on Twitter today the fact that, well, USC looked into potentially, having Eric Bieniemy, interview for them because Eric Bieniemy, obviously your question is, well, why would a big-time offensive coordinator for the Chiefs want to leave the NFL and go down to the college football scene? Now, Eric Bieniemy is actually from Southern California, from what I saw from this tweet, and he said he would be interested in looking to the USC head coaching job if that was available. Well, it's available.
I didn't know he was from there.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So I'm guessing probably after the Chiefs season is done, or maybe sometime during the NFL season, maybe USC will just, hey, could we, or maybe after the fall college football season, maybe USC interviews Eric Bieniemy. And if Eric Bieniemy's, probably not getting NFL, any hires, which he's regardless, he's going to get NFL, opening looks to see where these teams want him. And if it's just not convincing enough where these teams don't want to sign him to be their head coach, then maybe he goes down to USC and he takes hold of there. Now, as a UCLA fan, I would fucking hate that.
That'd be very interesting. I feel like that'd be a very, very big story.
Yeah, but definitely be interesting to see where the USC head coaching job goes there. I do have a friend that actually goes to USC. I don't know if he plays for the Trojans in their starting lineup, but so for USC in terms of their aspect, it's only up they can get up from there. Listen, from what players on USC said and what most people said in the media is Clay Helton's a good dude, but seems like he wasn't really a good head coach. But so USC still looking for that, I guess, decade type of coach like Pete Carroll they once had, but they haven't had that. So
I don't know if it's coming anytime soon, honestly.
Yeah. Obviously, Arizona State defeated UNLV, and then Oregon State defeated Hawaii. Okay, moving on to the next conference, the SEC conference. Auburn defeated Alabama State 62-0. Again, we spoke on South Carolina narrowly defeating East Carolina. We talked about Tennessee losing to Pittsburgh. Obviously, we talked about Florida defeating South Florida. Georgia, we talked about that. But in this game, what's his face? I forgot the starting quarterback's name.
For what school?
Huh?
For what school?
Georgia.
Daniels, JT Daniels?
Yeah, JT Daniels. He actually wasn't playing this game. It wasn't because of COVID. It was actually because of injury. He suffered like a hip injury. And Stetson Bennett came in and he played. He played good because they only played UAB.
Well, I thought he played pretty well anyways. Yeah, like you were saying, yes.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Texas A&M game. Number 1, Alabama absolutely defeated Mercer.
I mean, honestly, this shouldn't even be on. It shouldn't be allowed to be on the schedule.
Well, hey, listen, Alabama, they schedule the teams that they want to do, and it's like, hey, they just talk to these teams like, hey, do you want the money? Because that's really why these lower teams play teams like in Alabama, even if it's to get their butts slapped. It's about the money, really, because those schools will make a lot of dough just flying over to Tuscaloosa and just say, hey, play a game against us. They'll get that money for the program, and, hey, that's good for them. So nothing you can really do about it. I would like it to if Alabama just scheduled tougher opponents and maybe even played, other conference opponents, maybe tougher ones. But then again, we saw that in week 1, and it was nothing. So I've always said this. I honestly think Alabama will start to drop off probably after Nick Saban retires. When he finally retires, I feel like Alabama won't drop off massively, but they're going to be college football in terms of the sport might be a little even in terms of the SEC who would win when Nick Saban retires. I can see where these other programs are like, when Nick Saban retires, that's going to be our chance to finally get Alabama.
Whatever that may be.
We were talking about Texas, Arkansas, or we'll get to that. NC State, we talked about that. Ole Miss defeated Austin Peay 54-17. It was a close game between SEC rivals Kentucky and Missouri. Kentucky ended up winning this game 35-28. I didn't catch this game, but it seemed like it was a dang near really good game. So that's my thoughts.
I didn't get to see much of this game either, but by the looks of it, it looks like it was a pretty good game. I mean, 35-28. I mean, that seems pretty good.
At Orgeron's,
I don't know if it was on TV at all either.
I think it was on the SEC network.
Oh, okay.
Ed Orgeron and the LSU Tigers rebound against McNeese. And fun fact, if you guys didn't know, is McNeese's starting quarterback is Ed Orgeron's son. They defeated them 34-7.
Oh,
so
crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, he got his rebounds, but I think LSU wants a bigger win to make up from that UCLA loss. We already talked about Vanderbilt defeating Colorado State. Moving on, Sun Belt Conference, and then we're done. Obviously, Coastal Carolina defeated Kansas. FAU defeated Georgia Southern. South Alabama defeated Bowling Green. Appalachian State lost narrowly to Miami. Texas State obviously defeated FIU. Liberty defeated Troy. Arkansas State lost in a very close matchup with Memphis. Louisiana bounced back from their loss against Texas, defeated Nicholls, but only by 3. They beat them 27-24. Very interesting. So maybe Louisiana might be maybe the Raging Cajuns might be a little sus and overrated themselves.
They came into the season very, very, very highly anticipated and rated. People had them. I think they might have been ranked 17th at first, and they played Texas that first game.
Maybe they're not as
But they were 23rd. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
they were.
Yeah. They're unranked now. And then Georgia State obviously got blown out to North Carolina. So those are all the conference reviews and stuff like that of all the conference scores. Now let's get into the big time games, obviously, of college football. So let's obviously start off with the first game of the morning, which was the biggest game, and that was Oregon against Ohio State, where Oregon went into the horseshoe and came out victors and defeated Ohio State 35-28. And the score, even though it looks just by a one-score game, this game was honestly just complete domination by Oregon from start to finish. Just crazy. Anthony Brown, through his stat line was 17 for 35 for 236 yards and 2 TDs. I know there was a lot of people that were suspect on him, but he really came in and he showed no, I'm for real. I'm a pretty good player, and stuff like that. Now, as for CJ Stroud, he was 35 for 54. God damn, they gave him 54 pass attempts?
Yeah.
Damn. 44, 3 TDs and 1 interception. Listen, my thoughts on this game from watching this game, I just, we said a lot in last week's game recap that, or maybe Ohio State is a little overhyped because, even though they defeated Minnesota, it wasn't really dominant like you would think, Ohio State would have done in the past. But here I kind of figured I figured that maybe, Ohio State could have some trouble. Now, the reason why this is also shocking is Oregon didn't play, or Oregon's defense, they lost Thibodeau and then some other big defensive player. Those are 2 big-time defensive players on their team. And they walked in and they kind of just handled Ohio State. At some point, it was I think it was 28-7 or 14 or something like that.
For you. Yeah, it was 21-7, 20, and then 28-14, and then 35-21.
Yeah. So Oregon essentially handled Ohio State for the most part.
They at least always answered.
Huh?
I said they at least always answered.
Yeah. So one, you got to look at the fact that maybe Ohio State's defense isn't as good as past years. Definitely from the standpoint they were kind of in a battle with Minnesota. It makes sense why they couldn't hang with the offense of Oregon. And then CJ Stroud, even though stat line wise, he was fine. It looked good. You could see that, well, obviously against a tougher opponent, he kind of struggled a bit. So this is a big win for the Pac-12. A big loss for Ohio State. I don't know where they're ranked now, but they definitely did drop. And their chances for the college football playoffs, it definitely dropped, and they might not have a chance to get there because really they better hope, their other Big Ten, hopefully they meet up with Iowa or something like that, or Wisconsin, and they have a very convincing win. But other than that, unless things happen for teams ahead of them, I don't see how they make the college football playoffs. But then again,
it says here for you, sorry to interrupt, I thought you were asking for Ohio State's ranking. It says they're ranked. It says 9th right here, it looks like to me.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Yeah. Now they could very much still make it in with one win, but they're going to have some very convincing wins to do it. And they're going to have some teams ahead of them essentially lose a game so they can go up in the rankings. But I believe Ohio State next week, who I checked, they're playing Akron. Tulsa, which they'll probably beat them handily. I think what they need to do with Tulsa is that I think they need to beat them handily to show the committee, like, okay, we just had one slip up the past couple of weeks, and including Oregon week. And look, we want to show that we're for real. What are your takeaways from this week's game against Oregon and Ohio State?
Yeah, you basically covered it all, but I think, like you said, Ohio State losing to Oregon. Oregon, they're a damn good football team. Like you said, they had one of their guys, one of their defensive players. I think it was Thibodeau. He was he had the hat on and shades the whole game. Like, I don't even think he suited up for the game. And he's a big player, so that's huge for them. And this is a huge win for Oregon, the Pac-12. A huge win for someone like UCLA, your team UCLA, because this just gives the Pac-12 another team that UCLA can build a resume for if they win. So I think it's a big win. Like I said, I think you've covered it all. I think Stroud, I think he had a pretty good game, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
484 yards, that's not for nothing. So I think he had a pretty good game. But I think maybe Ohio State's a year too young. But I think this is a time for Oregon. I really do think Oregon can, and I think they will make the playoff this year.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting. I think Oregon is now 3rd in the rankings. Fourth. So right now they're in the college football playoffs. So essentially all they got to do is they just got to win. That's it. They got to win out. They got to win out. So for them to have the Pac-12 finally appear for their first ever, Pac-12 finally have their first appearance in the college football playoffs. The next big time.
Washington did make it the first year.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did. I forgot.
And they got killed. And they got blown out. So.
Yeah. The next big time game, which it wasn't really a big time game in terms of scoring, but it was a very underrated game, and that's the fact that Texas A&M actually escaped the upset to Colorado. Now they played in the Denver Broncos Stadium in Mile High, Denver, and this game, for a majority of the part, it was Colorado absolutely handling Texas A&M. The majority of the game. Then when Texas A&M finally scored, it was a tie game. And it was, which team is going to score first? And the thing is, Texas A&M lost their starting quarterback, and they had to bring in their backup quarterback, Zach Calzada. And that's the reason why it was so low scoring, because this was like one of his first time starts and everything. Because obviously Haynes King went down. But the thing is, it was a very close-knit game, and on one of the Texas A&M possessions, Zach Calzada, finally got it into the end zone, and they managed to defeat Colorado. Now, I feel like if Colorado, in terms of their quarterback play, did better, they would have won. Like their quarterback, Lewis, he was only 13 to 25 for 89 yards and 1 pick. That's not going to get it done. And if Colorado had beaten Texas A&M, especially 5th-ranked Texas A&M at the time, that would have been another huge win for the Pac-12. But, listen, the thing that's kind of I thought that was a very entertaining game. The only thing that sucks for Texas A&M is the fact that with Haynes King going down, this could hurt their college football, playoff chances. But that's all I got to say.
I do think it'll hurt the college football playoff chances, and I didn't even think about it from the standpoint of the Pac-12 of how they're doing. I am looking at the Lewis kid stats from Colorado. He did have 89 yards, but he did lead the team rushing with 76 yards, which is, I guess, all right. But very, very low scoring. But it was a very, very, very good game to watch. I enjoyed watching this game a lot. It was one of those games where, I don't enjoy low scoring games that much, but I really enjoyed this one for some reason. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely a good game. So Texas A&M avoids the upset because if they had won, if they had lost, my God.
Yeah,
crazy.
I hope all is well for King and hope he has a speedy recovery.
Yeah. Shockingly enough, there was actually a good turnout of Texas A&M fans in Denver.
Yeah, that was actually cool to see them playing in Denver. Cool, I like that at Mile High Stadium.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's Colorado's new home stadium now because
I'll check that out for you.
I don't know, but I don't think it is. So it's definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. But while my co-host gets that whole thing, moving on to the next game, it was essentially the advertised primetime college game day game, and that was Iowa. Against Iowa State, the Iowa rivalry battle. And Iowa went into Iowa State and utterly let's be honest, they handled them 27-17. Now, in terms of, at a point in this game, it was kind of just like back and forth, and really no offense. It was kind of just a defensive battle. Then second half came, and Iowa just went insane, and they just utterly defeated Iowa State. Now, Petrus, the quarterback for Iowa, he didn't really have a stat line good game because he only was 11 for 21, threw for 106 yards and 1 touchdown. But hey, if that's going to cut it for you, that's fine. Goodson, he had 21 rushes for 55 yards and 1 carry. I thought Iowa, that impressed me more for Iowa instead of their offense was their defense, how stout it was throughout this game. And if their defense is going to be that stout, they definitely could take on Ohio State, because we saw last week against Indiana, they handled Indiana pretty good, and they had a lot of takeaways in that game too. They intercepted what's his name?
The lefty from Indiana.
Yeah.
Let me check. I should remember. I'm gonna check.
Penix Jr.
Yes, Michael Penix Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. They intercepted him 3 times, and look what they did to Brock Purdy. 3 picks this game. So definitely this Iowa team, this is definitely a defensive team, and they're ranked 4th. Or no. They're ranked 5th. Yeah, they're ranked 5th. They're a top 5 team now. So. Maybe if their offense balances out with their defense, they could be a pretty good team to watch out for and potentially make the college football playoffs. So just like Oregon, they might have to win out to potentially make it. We'll just to see what happens there. But for the Iowa State side, it was not good for them. You have College Game Day Station in Iowa State. You got the home fans behind you, and you get beat by your home state rival that badly. And I'm going to be honest, it was a bad performance for the offense. The defense, I thought, did enough to keep them in the game. But, man, I knew Brock Purdy was like shaky, but he was terrible. His stat line was 13 for 27, 138 yards, and 3 picks. Now I heard that Brock Purdy wasn't good, and he isn't cutting it, but he definitely wasn't cutting it to the point. They brought in the backup at some point in this game.
Yes, they did. Who didn't do that bad?
Yeah, so maybe Brock Purdy's time at Iowa State is coming, up, because if he's going to give performances like that, and I think Brock Purdy's another quarterback that gives the ball up and turns the ball over a lot of times. If that's going to happen, then you might as well just ride the bench because, yeah. And then for Matt Campbell, this is not good for him because I think he hasn't won a game against Iowa at all since his tenure at Iowa State. And a lot of people said this is going to be the year that they do it. Well, nope, not this year. And I think he's like all-time 0-7. 0-7. Yeah, that's just as bad as Jim Harbaugh's record when it comes to trying to beat Ohio State. But your thoughts on this game?
So, just for clarification, Colorado plays at Folsom Field.
Okay.
So not Mile High. And I was looking at Matt Campbell versus Iowa. And I haven't found that out yet, but I can find it out for you after. But talking about the game, I do think that Iowa definitely has a chance this year. And, like, they're a team that – I'm not saying that they could beat Alabama. I'm not saying that they will. But they're a team that has a formula to do it because they run the ball, they control possession, and they have a tough, gritty defense. And they really do. And like I said, I'm not saying they beat Alabama, but I would like to see that game. I really would. Because of the way they play football. And I think the way they played also intimidated Brock Purdy in Iowa State and Matt Campbell. And I think that they came into Iowa State, and like you said, it was in Iowa State, college game day. Iowa State has their fans. But Iowa came in, they looked poised, they looked comfortable, they looked confident, and they came out and they just followed their game plan. And they played smash run football, and they punched Iowa State in the mouth. And they honestly, like you said, they dominated from the beginning.
Yeah. Like, I think even Goodson said, because they brought this up in the message and the broadcast, that Goodson said, oh, look, we're not worried about this. This is just another game for us. To them, it's their Super Bowl because they got college game day and everything and stuff like that. And Kirk Herbstreit is like, I don't know if I would have said that comment. Well, they backed up that talk right then and there. So,
yes, they did.
Hey, I guess if you have full right to say that. You just, again, if you're going to talk big like that, you better win. I'm cool with people talking, but if you're going to make statements like that, you better come out winning. So,
I agree.
Yeah. Next game. Well, let's just say this. Welcome to the SEC.
Yes. Yes. Welcome to the SEC.
Which Arkansas was literally trolling Texas this past weekend, saying, well, welcome to the SEC. You want us now? And Arkansas pulls up the upset and blows Texas out 40-21. Another game that wasn't even close to begin with. Just not even close. Texas hung in there for about a quarter and 2 quarters and a half, and then Arkansas just went full go hogs mode. And they just utterly just defeated Texas. They had Texas' number. And mind you, Arkansas used to be a Big 12 opponent for Texas, but here they're like, oh, no, you're going to get a taste of SEC football. We're going to make you sure you guys regret thinking about coming here. And they utterly blew them out. It was so bad. Texas is now unranked. That's how bad their loss was. They're unranked now. And obviously –
sorry, keep going.
Obviously, now the one thing I will say that is nice is even though now that fans are back, obviously storming the field, that's a whole tradition. That's good. But I think in a pandemic era, I don't think that's a good idea. So you hope that no Arkansas or Texas players caught the virus if they're not vaccinated. Hell, you can still catch it if you are vaccinated. But hopefully none of the players caught the virus because fans storming the field. This was a definitely good win for Arkansas, and it's just a moment for Texas where it's like, well, I guess we probably should have just not said those things because you're Texas and you're back to being good old Texas like we all know. You're just another overhyped college football team on the levels of Michigan.
Yes, you saw the Arkansas football Twitter page. They said welcome to the SEC and posted the score up there. I thought that was pretty cool. Arkansas's quarterback, KJ Jefferson, he had a pretty good game. I mean, granted, he threw the interception, but he was 14 of 19 for 138 yards. He also had 10 carries for 73 yards, which is, I think, big. Arkansas is 2-0 now. So they have a little seam right now going into week 3. So
Yeah. We're not going to expect them to beat the top tier types of schools like the Alabamas and hell, maybe the LSUs or the Georgias. But it's still an impressive win because they beat a ranked opponent, and they utterly handled them. Now, as for Texas, not a good thing for Steve Sarkisian to go back to Austin for, because now you're going to probably have the Texas boosters like.
Just like Sam Ellinger said, we're back.
Yep.
Texas football's back being Texas football.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Texas. They're just as overhyped as Michigan. Again, see, the thing is, the reason why I put them on the caliber of Michigan is, their football teams back in the day were really good. Now they're not good. They're just overhyped teams that just they just have the name. Michigan, that's just a big name of the school. Texas, a big name. They're not what they used to be. And this is any indication of Texas in the SEC. Well, that's not good. Not good at all.
Have fun.
So, yeah, maybe you bit more than you can chew. Anyways, going on to the last big-time primetime game we're going to talk about, which essentially ended the night for most people, and that was the Michigan versus Washington game. And just like some of the other big-time primetime games this week is the fact that, well, Michigan utterly just had Washington's number from the jump. It wasn't from kickoff. It wasn't even close. Like, Washington for like their first 4 to 5 possessions couldn't move the damn ball at all on offense. Like, it was just annihilation, And this doesn't look good for Washington at all. It's not. You lose to the one FCS school, Montana State, and then you get blown out to Michigan, who we all pretty much know by the time they play legit Big Ten teams, they're going to show their true colors. I'm going to see if they're over right now. The one thing is, from a Michigan standpoint, I guess you can be somewhat impressed is the fact that the defense looks pretty solid, especially after Don Brown upped and left town, because his defense wasn't cutting it last year. They got the new defensive coordinator is actually from Jim Harbaugh's brother, and from John Harbaugh, and he came from the Ravens to coach with obviously his brother. And the defense seems legit. Offense, I don't know. I'm still kind of like, I don't know about Caden McNamara. He doesn't look like he's got a big arm. And it's looking like he's a guy that won't like throw the ball down the field and actually threaten a defense with his arm. But listen, I think it's a good win for Michigan. You defeated an opponent, I would say a quality opponent. You blew them out in your building. It's definitely be interesting to see how you fare against your Big Ten opponents. So, yeah, I'm going to see who Michigan has on their schedule. They actually play Northern Illinois next week. But, in terms of Washington, listen, they just got to do better. They just got to do better. Now, they could lose next week because they got Arkansas State, and Arkansas State is a team that will actually make you work to beat them. So, yeah, and then after that, that's when they start Pac-12 play.
So, I wanted to talk about this video or this game because I watched this whole game, and then I came back, watched the highlights, and looked over the stats before we made this video. And Caden McNamara, in a 31-10 win, was 7 for 15 for 44 yards and a 16.2 QBR. I don't know if anyone has ever thrown for that many yards in a win. But also the two running backs for Michigan, Blake Corum, he had 21 carries for 171 yards and 3 TDs. And then Hassan Haskins had 27 carries for 155 yards and a touchdown. So as you can see, the Michigan won with the ground game. And like you said, I think when both those teams get into conference play, they will both Michigan will go back to losing ways, and Washington will continue losing. That's really all I have to say. I just thought it was crazy because the stat line, I didn't realize he only threw 44 yards watching that game, and I watched that full game. So,
yeah, So it seems like the blueprint when you play Michigan is stop their run at any cost you can and force Caden McNamara to be a passer. And if
Yes.
that's the case, well, Michigan's utterly screwed. So
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh might need to recruit like one of the top type of high school quarterback prospects in the country. But then again, it's hard to do that when nobody wants to go play for Michigan. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. But yeah, that's it for week 2. Again, we'll probably be making week 2 recaps and record these videos Tuesday, and they'll go up Wednesday because they take long to render the video and everything. But I thought this week of college football, it wasn't exciting. There was a few exciting matchups and stuff like that, but definitely not a week where it's like, oh, it's a loaded week. Now, something that I'm going to actually include in these videos now is to actually talk about some, interesting matchups on the schedule next week. Now, obviously, one of the interesting matchups is Nebraska at Oklahoma. Now, where that could go, who knows? That's number 3, Oklahoma versus Nebraska. Number 8, Cincinnati actually travels to Indiana. So that's another early start game that could be, hey, maybe you watch out for an Indiana upset alert right there. So, yeah. Michigan State, Miami. Even though Miami's not advertising, that's a good early game right there.
That is.
Going through the schedule anymore, Yukon play. For anybody who cares about Yukon, well, they're playing Army.
Oh, gosh, it's on CBSSN. I'll be sure to tune into that. See, you can't.
Now, Notre Dame, they actually play Purdue. Now, this week, they're not going to be on the Peacock app like they were against Toledo. That's if you're wondering, how did you catch the Notre Dame game? They were on the Peacock app. So you got to have, I think, a subscription to watch that and stuff like that. So
not much.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the biggest matchups, and this is your typical SEC CBS game, that is Alabama at Florida. I don't see what Florida's going to do. I think it's going to be a rinse repeat of the SEC championship game. But who knows? Maybe Florida makes it a game because it's in Florida, and the Swamp is a pretty hard place to play in.
Yeah, so that could be a good game. I'll definitely tune in and watch that game, a lot of that game.
So, yeah. I guess for Florida State fans, if you want to know, they go up against Wake Forest. So maybe they can beat Wake Forest. I don't know if they can.
Wake Forest is 2-0, so.
SEC or USC will start their post-Clay Helton era against Washington State. That's on Fox at 12:30.
3:30 Eastern.
3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific Standard Time. Going down the list. South Carolina plays Georgia. That could be an interesting matchup. We'll see there. So, yeah. Obviously, the big-time, prime-time matchup of the week that's obviously hyped up is the Auburn-Penn State game. That's in Penn State. I think that's going to be the whiteout game for Penn State. I don't know what that is, but that's going to be the big-time, prime-time, the whole thing, ESPN advertises and stuff like that.
Game, by the way.
Yeah. Another good game to watch out for is Virginia at North Carolina. That could be a very interesting matchup there. Now that's games
2-0, so.
Yeah, that game's in North Carolina. That takes place the same time during the Auburn-Penn State game as well. So yes. Going on. Arizona State, a ranked matchup, plays BYU at BYU. Something to watch for tonight. Another Pac-12 after dark matchup right then and there. So obviously for East Coast people, that might be a pain in the ass to stay up for, but maybe you can stay up for that game and check that out. Obviously UCLA
FaceTime before.
Yeah. Obviously UCLA plays Fresno State late at night, and that's kind of it in terms of potential big matchups next week. But we'll be here next week to talk about week 3. But I enjoyed this week of college football. Definitely a lot of shockers, to say the least. But, that's the thing about college football. You get shocked sometimes where you see things coming. What were your thoughts of week 2 of college football before we get out of here?
Yeah, just it wasn't much anticipation or much big games besides the Iowa State-Iowa game. But, again, there's some shockers that you don't see coming. So that's why you always got to watch all the games of college football. You can always expect something awesome out of college football. That's why it's awesome to watch and follow.
Yep. Anyways, guys, we're gonna get out of here. We'll see you guys next Wednesday for our week 3 recap of college football. And other than that, guys, we're gonna get out of here. So hopefully you guys like the video. So leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on this week of college football. Any interesting matchups that surprised you and stuff like that, as well as hit that subscribe button to get more of my content on my channel, whether it's for college football, and if you want to peer into my NFL content, which the last 2 videos I've made so far have been utter rants of the Chicago Bears ineptitude.
They had good videos though. Check them out.
I cover the Bears in terms of NFL content and stuff like that. So in terms of that, if you want to get my live reactions to post-game stuff, well, look forward to Sunday to see if the Bears can beat the Bengals next week. I don't think they will. But I don't know if in that case, if you are subscribed, I did think about doing live videos, but I'm probably not going to do live streams because they take a while to process and go up to the channel. You actually have to go into my channel and find them in my Chicago Bears playlist. So I'll probably just have a pre-recorded video go up as a premiere live video after the game because it's technically a live video. But other than that, I'll look forward to that when that comes. But other than that, we're going to get out of here. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there. Until then, guys, we'll catch you guys next week review. Till then, guys, peace.